Well, hello, Water of Life. We are so glad that you are continuing the Follow Me series. This past weekend on our conversation about fasting was so good. And as we continue to examine the spiritual disciplines, I want to just walk us through a little bit more on fasting. See, fasting is a practice that all throughout Scripture, whether it's David or Daniel, Esther, and even Jesus himself, they all practice fasting. And I'll be honest, some of us may find prayer or scripture or Sabbath more familiar, and in contrast, may find fasting to initially be a little intimidating. But it's so important because fasting is one of the ways Jesus invites us to reorder our desires and remember that He is truly enough. So why? Why is fasting so important? Because at its core, fasting is about making space. It's a way of saying no to something, even something good like food, so that we can say yes to something better. And that better being the presence of God and inviting Him to move in our life. See, Jesus talks about fasting in Matthew 6 as He's teaching His disciples. And He says something so key. He says, when you fast, see, notice He doesn't say if you fast, but when you fast, meaning Jesus had an expectation that fasting would be something His followers did, not as a way of earning God's love, but as a way of aligning ourselves with God's love. See, fasting is a way of training our bodies and our souls to depend on God. We're reminded that we don't live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from His mouth. So I want to encourage you with some practical application. See, fasting doesn't always have to mean a 40-day wilderness fast, but for many of us, it simply looks like setting aside a meal or a type of food for the purpose of prayer and focus. See, when hunger rises, instead of running to food, we run to God. That hunger becomes a reminder that my deepest need isn't physical, but it's spiritual. See, the goal is not just to go without food, but to fill the space with prayer, with scripture, and with the awareness of God. So this week's practice, here's the simple invitation for you this week. I want to encourage you to choose one day of the week to fast. Schedule it on your calendar, and then be intentional to fill that day with consistent times of worship and prayer. And maybe you're not ready for a full day, and that's okay. I want to invite you to choose maybe 1 or 2 meals to skip that day. Maybe it's breakfast, or maybe it's dinner, and just pick one. And then during that time, instead of eating, spend about 30 to 60 minutes in prayer. And most important is creating space and asking God to meet you in that space. See, fasting is about letting our hunger nudge us back to Him. And I even want to maybe speak to some of you where fasting food isn't necessarily wise for health reasons, and that's okay. But you can still fast. I want to encourage you to consider fasting something else that fills your attention. Maybe for you, it's no caffeine or sugar. Or maybe it's no social media or turning off the TV for a day. Maybe it's putting your phone down. The heart is the same. It's less of what fulfills us physically to invite God's provision spiritually. So here's how I want to wrap this up. As a reminder that fasting reminds us that God is the one who sustains us. It clears space so we can encounter Him more deeply. So this week, let's practice turning hunger into prayer, that feeling of emptiness into dependence, and let Jesus fill the space that we've opened for Him.